Hey, skill setters, it's Mitch. It is Tuesday. It's about 1 o'clock here in Clovis, New Mexico, Tuesday the 25th of May. I promised that I would promise someone here in the group that I would post this video on how to determine price and a fee as a wholesaler, because a lot of people are getting this twisted, and I want to make sure that we're all clear and on the same page. I had done a video previously that says, how do I start? Where do I go from getting a deal? And since so many of you mocked me for my artistic skills or lack thereof, I've cleaned up the presentation a little bit, but I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. This is the house, right? This is your target house. And my point in the previous video was that there's a bunch of, but let's just focus on 3 strategies that could be used for disposition of this property. Disposition meaning, what are you going to do with it? You're buying this as an asset. Why? Why would an investor buy this property? And let's focus on 3 possibilities. 1, they're going to use it as a long-term rental. Makes perfect sense. 2, they're going to use it as a short-term rental. They're going to Airbnb it. They're going to make it available for VRBO, but they're going to do it on a short-term basis. And then another possibility is that they're going to flip it. They're going to buy it, fix it. And when I say they, the person that's going to be buying this deal from me, I'm the wholesaler, is going to be buying this, fixing this, and flipping it for a profit. And my point was that the only way that you know what that value of this property is to an investor is to run your financial analysis. There's no other magic. I don't care what their asking price is. I don't care what the listing price is. I don't even care what the comps are, right? Because comps don't tell me whether this thing is going to produce cash flow. Comps tell me what a owner-occupant is willing to pay for the house. Comps matter here. So I'll say that. Comps matter when you're talking about flipping, because I'm going to sell it to an owner-occupant. If I'm holding it to rent long-term, or I'm holding it to rent short-term, I don't care what the comps are so much as I care how well this thing produces cash flow. And that has nothing to do with what the house next door sold for. So my point in the previous video was to set up this concept of a tool, an analytical tool that helps you figure out what's the deal worth, what's the value of this thing. And for long-term and short-term rentals, the deal confidence training that we talked about is what's going to help you figure out what is this deal worth, because the worth is going to be predicated on the ability of that property to produce cash flow. Cash flow is the goal for long-term and short-term rentals. That's why you buy a rental property, is to deliver cash flow. So in order to analyze how much the deal is worth, you have to know how much cash flow it produces. And that's where the deal confidence training comes into play. For flips, it's a different story. For flips, it's much simpler. You're going to buy it, you're going to fix it, you're going to sell it. And so there's a pretty standard formula. I didn't invent this. It's called the Mayo formula, which typically is 70% times ARV minus renovation is equal to the maximum allowable offer. So just a quick example. If the property ARV is $100,000 and the renovation is $10,000, then the most you should pay for that property as a flip is 70% of ARV, which would be $70,000, 70% of $100,000, $70,000, minus the $10,000 renovation. 70 minus 10 sounds like $60,000. So $60,000 would be the maximum allowable offer in that particular case. That's relevant because that price, this Mayo, in the case of this deal confidence, the value that you come up with is the value not for you, because you're not going to be the one buying the deal. This is the value to your investor, and that's the point that people aren't necessarily getting, is that I'm doing all this analysis not for my benefit, because I'm not going to be the one doing the deal. As a wholesaler, I'm not doing the deal. As a wholesaler, I'm finding great deals and selling them to an investor so that they do the deal. So I'm running my deal confidence so that I can come up with the number that my investor is going to get when they buy this deal from me. Or in the case of a flip, I'm coming up with this 70% ARV minus renovations so I can know what the number is that my investor is going to make, or I'm sorry, that most of my investor can pay for my deal. So there's a contract price I deal with the seller, there's the investor contract price, and then there's my wholesale fee. But you have to work this backwards. So let's give an example. If I run my analysis and I determine that the most my investor can pay is $120K. In order for them to make what they need to make, the most that the investor can pay is $120K. Well then, I can look and see, well, what is the contract price that I got, right? Because you typically get the contract first from the seller, and then you go try to find your investors. So if you know your contract was had at $110,000, then guess what? You know how much maximum wholesale fee you can make. $10K. That's it. You don't get to pick this. This doesn't get picked. You get to pick this, and this gets determined by the analysis. So this is determined by the nature of the deal, by the property, where it is, what the rents are, etc. This is not something that the seller tells you. This is something that you calculate. Everybody calculates that on their own. You calculate this, and then you negotiate this. And the better you can negotiate this, the more this is. But what you cannot do is say, well, the investor, I'm going to get it for $110,000, and then I decide, you know what? I want $15,000. Well, you may want $15,000, but at $15,000, that means that your investor has to pay $125,000. It's not a deal at $125,000. No one's going to buy it at $125,000. So you may want $15K, but you ain't getting $15K because the deal is not worth $125,000. So you don't get to pick your wholesale fee. Your wholesale fee is determined by how well you can negotiate, which is this, and the nature of the deal, which is set, more or less. If you run your numbers and I run the exact same numbers for the exact same deal, we should get roughly the same value here, because this is not going to change based on anything here or there. Well, it's going to change, but this is reality, right? This is what this deal is worth. You get to decide how good a deal you can negotiate. If you negotiate this to be $100,000 even, then yes, you get to enjoy a $20,000 wholesale fee. Good for you. But hate to say it, but if you negotiate $120,000 or $119,000 price, you don't get to bump this up. You don't get to say, you know what, I still want a $10,000 fee, so I'm going to make this $129,000. Nah, that's not how it works. If you negotiate $119,000 and it makes sense for an investor to buy it at $120,000, then sad to say, your wholesale fee is going to be $1,000 because that's all you've earned. And so that's how it works. You don't get to pick your wholesale fee. You get to pick what price you're going to negotiate to get this contract. But once you've set this and this follows, this is defined. That's how it works. You don't get to choose your wholesale fee in the real world. Your wholesale fee comes about as a result of your skill in negotiating a great deal. So hopefully that helps and answers the question how you determine price and your fee as a wholesaler. And just for the record, just to be clear, this is true for either of those three. Whether you're doing a long-term rental, short-term rental, flip, or frankly any other kind of deal, once you get that number, once you get that the amount of money that the investor is going to pay, once you know this, then the rest of this is pretty much set in stone if you've already got the contract. And if you can negotiate a better contract, then you can make a bigger wholesale fee. Hopefully this helps. If you have any questions, post down below in the comments. This, I'm hoping, will clear up how this thing is done.